version control system, VCS. Now, what is this VCS, I would say? If I categorize VCS, then VCS stands for version control system, right? And in the VCS, you can say that VCS is actually used in order to, I would say, give a platform where teams can collaboratively develop something in order to deploy the thing there. Now, how you can identify this VCS is, let's say that you have a software there, and that particular software is actually a project. So this is your project, and that particular project is actually being developed by 10 people. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. Number 1 is using, or you can say number 1, 2, 3, 4. They are working on UI development. 5, 6, 7 are actually using as backend development. And 8, 9, 10 are actually working with database. Make sense? These are how 3 teams are divided to work on that particular project. Whatever files the UI team is developing, and whatever files the backend team is developing, and whatever file the database team is developing, all this file needs to be stored on a single location.
If you enjoyed the content of the video, don't forget to like and share the video and subscribe to our channel.
People try to share some files collaboratively in a team, right? So that particular development files or the project file needs to be stored somewhere centrally. So version control system is nothing but a centralized management of your project files that actually allows everyone to play around with it. And the technology that is actually used with the version control system is Git. Okay, and Git is not the only technology that is available. There are multiple others, Mercury, Subversion, and all. But Git is the most popular. And Git was actually created by the founder of Linux only. And when he created it, he personally, with his team, was facing issue in order to develop something called Linux, right? They were working on the project of Linux, and then they were facing issue in order to store the daily developments on a centralized location. So he created Git in almost 10 days. And then they started storing all these particular files on a centralized. It's just like a Google Drive, which actually allows you to track the files and play along with it. So all the other, you can say, cloud companies, be it Git, be it Azure, be it AWS, all these companies also have started using the same thing as a drive there, kind of a Dropbox. So the platforms that actually is based on the technology Git is called as GitHub. So GitHub is not a technology. You need to understand the hierarchy pretty well. That GitHub is a platform based on how Git works. And Git is a child of version control system. So version control system is the main entity, is the main technology out of which Git was created using VCS technology. And GitHub is a platform, is a cloud hosted service that is based on this particular Git. You get that? So we generally use GitHub, right? And if you talk about the GitHub terminology, or if you talk about how Git actually works, then the architecture of Git works in a way, or GitHub, you can say Git or GitHub. So when you look at Git or GitHub, then you have categorizations of flow there. So you have something called working directory. Then you have something called staging area. Then you have something called local repository. And then you have the remote repository. Which is GitHub. So generally, this is divided into 2 parts, right? This is one partition, and so master and local, or remote and local. This is how the categorization is done. all your working directory, all your staging area on your local repository, everything is kind of, you can say, local there. And whenever we talk about remote, that is the only thing that is available onto your remote thing. So how it works is, you basically, if you want to create some files and share it with your team locally, you're going to create a file in your local repository. Okay. For example, abc.py is a file that you create. Now, when you open that file, you actually go to staging area and do some modifications. Which means once your modifications are done, then you actually save that file by doing a commit, which means the development of this particular file is done. So you traversed from your working directory by creating a file, you reached into staging area when you modify the file, and when you're done modifying the file, you commit that file and reach it into local repository. That's the last stage of like modification that is required there. Once you save it, then the file is stored into local repository. And several like that, there can be multiple files there that you have developed in the same way. All these files can actually be pushed onto remote on GitHub, okay, and a copy of that is uploaded onto the GitHub there on a remote repository, so that even if you delete these files, even if you do any changes these files are available on a centralized location that all the team members can actually access that. So whenever they want to access the files that you have developed, they actually reach from their local to the remote repository, and they kind of pull the file in order to be able to modify something into that. Maybe you are only developing half part of the version of that particular file. The rest of the part needs to be created by someone else. So they basically go onto GitHub and they play along with it. That's how GitHub majorly is used as a technology there. So there are certain terms that are basically used, or certain commands that are used. One of which is, so everything is now GUI based, okay? But there are still commands that probably would be asked to you in the exam, but doesn't need to be used by you in the production environment because everything is available with GUI now. So there is a command that you can use called git add. So what you do is, in your system, you install something called git bash. After you install this git bash, it allows you to synchronize your GitHub account over here by logging into your GitHub account. And this is nothing but a command line into command prompt. So you can use all these commands over here to use GitHub in a CLI way, not in a GUI way. So there are commands that can be used in order to create a new file in your working directory. Okay. So if I say git space add space abc.py, I am basically creating a new file. Okay. And I'm putting it in a staging area. And then I can open my file by using ID or whatever I want. And I can, once I'm done doing all the changes into that file, then I can come back to git bash and I can say git commit. Okay. Once I do git commit, all the changes that I've done to that file will be saved into local repository. Once I save that file, in order to upload that into GitHub, I use a command called git push. And I can push that file. These are three commands when the changes needs to be done from your side. If there is any file that has been uploaded into GitHub and you want that particular file there, then what you do is you use a command called git pull. So it pulls whatever changes have been done into the remote repository or into the GitHub, and it stores the changes into your local repository. So you're copying the file from GitHub on your local machine. And then you can again do modifications to the file. Once you're done, then you can push it again. That's how the modifications actually done. So you kind of pull it and you kind of push it back. Okay, this is how GitHub overall works in the way. Makes sense, but everything is available by using I would say GUI only, so nothing will be taken care of. And that's all the questions that probably would be there from the GitHub into your exams. Any questions?
Please, can you move to the previous page?
Yes, sure. Dave.
Okay. Because I'm new in with GitHub, what is the meaning of working directory, and then what is the second one?
Whenever you open your downloads folder, or whenever you open your desktop folder or C drive in your computer, that is called as working directory. Okay.
And the
Now
second one?
I'm coming to that. I'm just confirming one by one. So after you reach out to your working directory, you can simply say create a new file, right?
Yeah.
Now let's say in your VS Code you created a new file. In that particular file, you save that file on abc.py.
Yes.
Okay, in let's say desktop location. You start modifying that particular file. Whenever you are modifying that file, the file is not saved into the local repository, right?
Yeah.
It is not committed. You're still working on that file, which means the file is in staging area. So these are terminologies that are addressed at certain states of the file when it's traversing from creating to committing.
Okay.
Make sense? When you're typing your script, when you're doing modifications on your script, you are actually playing with staging area.
Okay.
Yep.
Until the time we
Committed,
we are not saving
it's
it.
going to be in the staging area.
Okay.
Yep. So that's something that I had to introduce to you. There are lots of other theories as well, but it all comes into self-study topics.